As the federal campaign tour continues ahead of the September 20th election, the federal Liberals have made an election promise aimed at helping young people buy a home. A re-elected Liberal government would help renters become homeowners through $1 billion in loans and grants. The Liberals say their plan would allow Canadians under 40 to save up to $40,000 toward their first home. However, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is dismissing Liberal leader Justin Trudeau's plan to make it easier to buy a home across the country. Mr. Singh says Mr. Trudeau has failed to do anything to make housing more affordable during his entire time in office. The Liberals 4 years ago unveiled a housing strategy designed to boost supply and help drive down costs for families. Well, joining us now to talk more on housing affordability in Canada is Mr. Brendan Caldwell, Director of Caldwell Securities Limited. Brendan, always great having you on Forum Daily. Welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be here, Nima.
So we've got a big topic on the docket today, housing affordability. It's also a huge election topic right now, so let's get into it. What are some ways that young people can build savings to purchase their first home?
Well, the best, most simple, straightforward way is to do a monthly contribution plan. Put just a little bit, such that you can't afford it, aside into some sort of savings. Just not that you can't afford it, but just so you begin to notice it. Whether it's $100, $200, $500, $1,000 a month, whatever it is that you slightly can't afford, into a savings account for this purpose. Now, there are these plans being batted around, but there's already a perfectly good plan called a tax-free savings account that one can use to accumulate money tax-free to the tune of $5,500 a year. So I think that is a good way to start. If it's $500 a month people are putting away, then that'll get you where you're going eventually.
And turning to some of the campaign promises around this, we know Justin Trudeau is promising to tackle housing affordability if they're re-elected. They're going to unlock TFSAs for first-time buyers. But as you said, we already have a similar program. We've got the RRSP system. So can you explain this for our viewers?
Well, sure. You can take money out of your RSP as a first-time home buyer. That is to say, if you haven't bought a house in the last 5 years, you're deemed a first-time home buyer, and you can take a certain amount of money, both you and your partner, out of your RSP, as long as you repay it over a period of time, I think 15 years. But, it's fine. It's already a system that works. It's not a question of the government needing to micromanage and engineer a new savings program. I don't even think it's necessarily a federal issue at all, because, one thing we have a great deal of is space in this country. If the old world is about history, we are very much about geography. So I think at a more local, both provincial and municipal level, the affordability of housing is probably more effectively dealt with at those levels. So yes, there are plans. There is a TFSA that already exists. You can put money in, take money out, no tax savings to put it in, no tax consequences to take it out. You can use the RSP where you save money putting it in, and you can no tax consequences taking it out as long as you pay it back. Even as I'm speaking, doesn't it sound complicated? Another program isn't going to make it easier for people who can't buy a home in Toronto, because anything they'd even consider is deep in the six figures or over $1 million. It's a tricky business for the federal government to sort of wade in there with these fairly blunt instruments to think they can make a huge difference.
And talking about housing prices, I want to jump to a potentially difficult question to answer, but this is the question on a lot of people's minds right now, millennials in particular. They're interested in knowing whether housing prices will continue to go up, or if they might freeze at some point, or even go down at some point. So what are your thoughts on this, Brendan?
Well, I said to a younger person at the beginning of the COVID crisis, if COVID doesn't knock the stuffings out of the specifically Toronto real estate market, but of the real estate market in general, I'm not sure anything ever will. Now, that having been said, eventually the cure for high prices is ultimately high prices. I'm old enough to just remember when the market stopped on a given day, the housing market stopped on a given day in 1989, cratered, and didn't start to recover for another 5 or 6 years, and took a good decade to get back up to where it had been before. The time it had done that previously was, quite a bit of distance in the past. So housing prices tend to work on generational swings. And I think it may be a while before, unless there's some other event, something new, something you haven't anticipated that really knocks the stuffings out of it. I think it'll be a while before you actually see housing prices go down. Thank you.
All right, Brendan, just about 30 seconds left, but really quickly, what about remote work, which has been really apparent during the pandemic? Could young people utilize that to live somewhere more affordable?
Well, yes, and I think a lot of people are doing that. There's no longer a need to be where I'm sitting right now in downtown Toronto to do most work. So what I think, though, in the short term, that's causing is prices to go up in remoter areas. I mean, remote when you're talking sitting at King and Bay, anything's remote.